Hey everybody, welcome to the Harvest Valley Life podcast. This is a podcast that goes deeper into the life of the church. We explore relevant topics, discuss updates, and share real life stories to both encourage and inspire you in your faith. Let's dive right in and get started. What's up, everybody? It's so good to be with you this afternoon. My name is Randy, lead pastor at Harvest Valley Church, and I just want to say thank you so much for listening to this episode. We are always excited just to be able to join with you, just to let you know what's happening in the church and just walk through some new things. Today's episode and the ones ahead we have is to introduce you to some of our elders and directors, and I'm really excited to introduce to you Russell Kuntz. He's going to be one of our directors. But before we do that, for those who are listening, I want to remind you what our directors do and what their role is at Harvest Valley Church. And so directors serve the church by forming its legal governing body, overseeing the church's corporate and financial affairs. They work with the leadership of the lead pastor and hold responsibility for key decisions involving the church's resources, such as managing property, financial commitments, and major transactions. They ensure that all corporate powers are exercised in line with the law and the church's bylaws. And we're excited today to introduce you one of our directors that will be helping us with all of that. So welcome, Russell Kuntz, to our episode.
Hey, thanks, Randy.
Hey, man, thanks so much for joining us. And first of all, I just want to just say thank you so much for your time, and thank you for saying yes to the call, being one of our first directors ever in the life of Harvest Valley Church. I really appreciate it, man.
Well, I appreciate having the opportunity to impact and have that impact on the church, and the church have the impact on me, because it's a mutual give and take, that's for sure. So
yeah, come on, that's so good. So yeah, I'm just looking forward just to serving alongside of you, and we know that God has some really big things in the future for Harvest Valley Church, and I'm so thankful to have you on the team. And the purpose of today's episode is give everybody a chance in our church and our listeners to get to know who our directors and elders are. And so I just want to just take this time just to get to know you a little bit more. So tell us about yourself. Who is Russell Kuntz?
Sure. So grew up in Southwest North Dakota, born in Dickinson, went through elementary school in Dickinson. Parents bought a farm in Richardson right before junior high, so spent junior high and high school in Richardson milking cows. Joined the Navy straight out of high school, graduated May 24th and went off to the Navy the next day. First time I'd been in Fargo was going through MEPS to fly out to go to Orlando, Florida to boot camp. So
wow.
I had met my future wife, girlfriend at that time, between my junior and senior year. She lived in Bismarck and had been up there visiting my sister, who was going to school up there, and met Melissa. And then after about 4 months in the Navy, things worked out, and she moved to Orlando. We got married, and we did the rest of the career together. Shortly after that, she thought she had a flu, and well, lo and behold, she was pregnant. So our first,
oh man,
yeah. So Brandon came along shortly after we had been married just under a year, and then he got joined with a brother a few years later, and lots of moves. Pretty much spent the first 9 years on the East Coast, and then moved over to Washington State and did the next 20 or roughly 20 years there, between there and Hawaii. So it wasn't too bad, a lot of time. So like I said, 26 years there, retired in 2016, and decided to settle in Seattle. Our oldest son, Brandon, was still in the Navy at that time. He had joined and ended up doing 10 years. Him and his wife, Victoria, were living in the Pac Northwest area. And then our son had just recently graduated college from the Pac Northwest area. And he had met his future wife during college, who was over from Denmark going to college. And they ended up, eventually getting married, and now he lives in Copenhagen, and we've got two great grandkids, Edith and Otto, and a wonderful daughter-in-law, Ida. So we get an opportunity to have a reason why we go over to Europe once in a while. And they're actually coming back for in July for about 3 weeks. So looking forward to that and already starting to plan that vacation. But yeah, we thought Seattle was going to be our forever home. And then, yeah, things just changed. Courses changed direction. I had got a job and pretty much I worked for a commercial real estate company doing facilities management for Amazon. Did that for a while and then shifted over to an engineering firm that was out of Charleston. So my jobs were always kind of traveling.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, we had came back to North Dakota just to visit family shortly after. And when we left Fargo, or when we left Bismarck that time, something didn't seem different. It's like, man, what is this? So we said, well, let's go home and pray about it and, and see. And we just kept getting that we needed to be back with our family. And when I retired, we had originally tried to get a job back here, but it didn't work in Bismarck.
Yeah.
But yeah, this time it was, I had a job. So all I had to say is, hey, is it okay if I move? And with the traveling, they're like, sure. So we ended up moving back. Fargo, my parents are in families in Bismarck now, and then her mom lives here. So yeah, it's kind of how we got here, and once we got here, we got ourselves a little dog a couple years ago. So everybody knows of the Gertie.
Yeah.
A cute little Bernie doodle that loves to run around and take our time and run the house. That's for sure.
That's amazing. Yeah, Gertie, she is so cute. What a great dog. Man, that's awesome. So, hey, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your service. You said 26 years. Is that what you said?
Yep.
Man, 26 years. That is amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, my wife, not my wife, my dad, he served in the Army for 20 years. So you just I get that lifestyle of just traveling all over the place. And so I really appreciate those who just serve in our military. So I appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about what you do now. What does life look like for you with career?
Yeah. So, I realized that I really did one of the things I love is leadership and being able to have an impact on people in a positive way, hopefully. So when we decided we wanted to move back to Fargo, I'd look for jobs, but there just wasn't anything that kind of fit what I wanted and in the area that I wanted. So it took a little bit of time, but through a lot of prayer and conversation with different people, I ended up doing a few interviews with Goldmark Property Management and ended up being hired as their vice president of maintenance for all their apartment buildings, pretty much everywhere with the exception of Bismarck and Grand Forks. So I have Fargo, Minneapolis, and Omaha. So yeah.
Wow. That's quite a responsibility. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I love it. I love it. So beyond work and all of that, tell us a little bit about what do you enjoy doing? What are some hobbies, some things that Russell enjoys doing in the downtime, if you have downtime?
Yeah. Well, I'd love to get out and play golf. I love golf a lot more than golf loves me. If I break my bowling score, if it was as bad as my golf score, I would be a great bowler. But so I'm not good at either, but I enjoy golf because it's a great time to get out with a couple guys, be outside and just enjoy, conversation and just being together. So during the summer, I try to do that. Me and Melissa like to travel when we can. And then just being at home, trying to spend time together and with Gertie and with family, try to, do between her mom and then we got her niece and great nieces that live and nephews that live in town and try to do stuff with them. And then obviously the church and life group, which is amazingly important. And then men's group. The other thing I've really tried to start doing is going out for coffee or lunch with somebody and just intentionally getting to know people. Because we are new to Fargo. So just being able to, sit down for an hour and have a conversation about whether it's about faith or about leadership or just whatever. And just have that
Yeah.
conversation and get to know people. So that's something I've intentionally trying to put time on my schedule to do in 2025 and beyond.
I love it. I love it, man. That is so important, and I appreciate the initiative that you take because it's amazing when you reach out to somebody. Hey, would you want to go for coffee? Probably 99% of the people say yes, and they really enjoy those moments. So I just appreciate just your intentionality in doing that. That's huge. That's awesome.
Thanks.
You know, you guys are no strangers to stepping out in faith and starting something new. Tell us a little about your endeavor and your wife's endeavor, Melissa's endeavor to start a new store. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So Melissa's always had a passion for really helping people and being around people.
Yeah,
With the moving all the time, that was with restaurants because she could move from restaurant to restaurant. She, in Hawaii, she helped start a couple and manage them, and
wow.
but she's always wanted her own store. She's always wanted something outside of the food industry
Yep.
because it's bad enough being married to the store, 10 hours a day, but with the restaurant, it's like 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. So when we decided that Fargo was going to be our long-term home, and I had got my job here, and we decided we were going to finally, pray about it, and God put the right things in the right places, got us an awesome location with a
Yeah.
amazing landlord and fellow tenant, and we were able to get everything going. So she was able to open a home decor and furniture store called Olive and Rust right off of 10th and 4th down, kind of downtown, right on the outskirts of downtown. So and that opened in October. So it was January 17th. Actually, that's today. January 17th of 2024 was the day she reached out to Andrew about frustrated about not having a building. And
Wow.
that's the day Andrew said, well, we're actually going to be looking at a building. And a year later, we're talking about, Olive and Rust being open. So that's pretty
Wow.
crazy.
That is crazy. Man, I just appreciate you guys having a dream and a vision and being willing to step out into it. And for those of you who are listening, if you haven't had a chance to go check it out, Olive and Rust, it's just a beautiful store. And so I appreciate you guys stepping out faith. That's quite a deal.
Yeah.
Amazing. I want to know a little bit more about your faith journey. Man, how did you come to know Christ? Unpack that for us.
Yeah, sure. Um, so we had a discussion with the life group. The men and the women broke up, and we each shared our testimonies. And everybody, like the men in our life group, are absolutely amazing. We have
Yeah.
a text that we go together. When I was sitting there thinking, like, nobody's ever really asked me what's my testimony. I was like, okay, there's nothing like no lightning struck or nothing happened that was just like I'm either going to make this decision or there's deathly consequences, which a lot of people's testimonies are,
Right.
or they grew up just kind of always in it. I grew up going to church but never had a relationship with Christ or had any impact. Church was a place where you spent a couple hours on Sunday, and then that was the extent of it. And even joining the Navy and leaving, it originally just wasn't, I wasn't that I didn't want to go to church. I just didn't feel like it was a priority.
Right.
But Melissa had a very strong faith, and her mom was a very strong prayer warrior. They had recently just went through the death of Melissa's dad, and so Melissa's mom, she was always she was either praying, she was at the 24-hour prayer house, or just she just had that presence about her. She's always trying to do things to help people.
Yeah.
So I had that, but it just wasn't like, to me, it wasn't something that was a priority. But in mid 90s, we had just recently moved to Kings Bay, Georgia, to the sub base down there. And Melissa was going to a church. I hadn't been going, but she'd take the boys, and I was finally like, well, at least let me go and see. So went to small little church. I remember it was had really small little building and had 2 trailers that they had for offices, on
Oh,
just
wow.
this little dirt road called Hidden
Yeah.
Treasures, and it literally was a little hidden. Um,
Wow.
and the message the pastor was delivering that day, and I'd been there a few times, just hit me. It was like, this is like, why why am I not doing this?
Yeah.
And I went up and got prayed for at the altar and gave my life to Christ. And shortly after that, actually, we had came back to North Dakota to visit, and I got baptized. Melissa's mom did it
Wow.
in a hotel pool
That's
in
awesome.
Bismarck because we wanted to get baptized, but where do you go? So
Yeah.
and then just from that point on, and like to me, that's my testimony is
Mm.
that point forward
Yeah.
is what the impact of God has really done in my life, in our life. And Melissa and me have went through multiple moves,
Yeah.
kids going off to college and just all sorts of different things. And with God, we've made it through all of it. And 35 years of marriage here this year, and it's just there's so many things that wouldn't have been possible. My
Mm.
career was the trajectory of how my career was going in the Navy totally changed
Yeah.
because my focus changed. It changed from being selfish about me and trying to always do what was best for me to being about how's this impact my family.
Yeah.
And the reality is like you have to have like you got to take care of your family. There's things you got to do, but when you have somebody that listens and you have somebody supporting you, it
Mm.
makes it a lot easier to make those decisions. And anything we were going to do or make a decision, we always prayed about it. Just like
Yeah.
let's take a minute and pray about it, and give it some time, and we'll see. And
Yeah.
every time the answer came when it was the right time, not necessarily when we wanted it, but we always got the
Right.
answer, and then we
Yeah.
moved on. So
Yep. That's so good. I appreciate that. And one thing I appreciate what you said was just the reality of just inquiring of the Lord. I've just been reading different parts of the Old Testament and how important it was to take moments just to hear from the Lord. And He truly does lead and guide. And like you said, not always in His timing. It's not always what we necessarily want, but we know that when we're in God's will, it's just there's so much joy, peace into that as well. So, man, I appreciate that about you. Who would you say, maybe a couple individuals or an individual who have been instrumental for you just in your faith journey?
yeah, first and foremost, obviously Melissa.
Mm.
She put up with me before, before when her faith journey was going and mine wasn't, and stuck with me. And then her mom prayed for us constantly. We
Mm.
were 19 years old, away from everything. Back in 1991, the Navy was not paying great salaries, and just getting ready to have a kid. And it was just there's a lot of ways I could go, but I
Yeah,
believe whether or not at that time I had the faith, she had the faith enough for all of us, and we still got the guided, still like things came into the place that they needed to be. Um,
yeah.
and then when we moved to Washington, shortly after we moved, we started going to a church, and this gentleman, his name's Vic
Mm.
Primo, retired Coast Guard helicopter search and rescue pilot, came up, and Vic's got a voice that when he talks normal, the whole church hears, and if
Wow.
he's singing, the whole town hears. He's just got a presence about him. Amazing man of God. Been with Christian Military Fellowship since he retired. To this day, still doing traveling all over, videoing, different Coast Guard retirements and ceremonies as part of the Christian Military Fellowship. Still has academy graduates from the Coast Guard Academy that'll stay at his house if they need somebody. I mean, just
Wow.
just him and his wife Cindy are amazing.
Yeah.
And he kind of became our kids like adopted grandpa because he was there, and we're in Washington, all our families here in North Dakota. But just such a strong man of faith.
Mm.
But he was also not like you knew it, but he didn't say it. Like
Yeah.
his presence carried it.
Yeah.
He didn't have to say it. You just knew that there was
Mm.
something different about Vic. And yeah, to this day we still very close, and we celebrate the good things and cry about the
Mm.
things that are tough still in our lives. And he's
Wow.
always somebody I know I can call, and he'll have time to talk. So
That's amazing. That's amazing. I what I've come to realize too is what you're saying, just the importance of having people in our lives that can help us in our faith. We weren't meant to do this alone. We truly need people in our corner, and that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that for us.
yeah.
As you think about your journey, even with faith, how did you and Melissa end up at Harvest Valley? Share that story.
Yeah. So when we moved to Fargo, 2020, right after COVID, it kind of started. We moved in downtown because we didn't know anything about Fargo.
Yeah,
Uh, so we moved in an apartment complex downtown and had started going to church down there, and had a great experience. Church growth. It just decided that it wasn't the right fit for us.
sure.
And Melissa said, "Well, I want to see about going to different places." And actually, it was kind of interesting. The pastor that was of that church, we had a conversation, and he had brought up, he's like, well, if I was ever to not have a church and I was going to go someplace, I would go to Harvest Valley, a new church that this Pastor Randy had just started. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, and I just kind of didn't think
Yeah,
anything about it. But
yeah,
then Melissa, I was on travel, and Melissa and a really good friend of ours um, went, and she calls me afterwards. She's like, you have to try this place. This is
hmm.
like, you have to come to Harvest Valley. We have to try it.
Wow.
So the next Sunday we went, and literally from the moment we walked in the door, from the greeters until today, the experience at Harvest Valley has been nothing but an amazing family of
Hmm.
support and love, but also accountability. And I think that's really what resonated with me. Is it's not about the show, it's
Yeah,
about the message. And it doesn't matter if that message is what America or the world wants to hear. Pastor Randy's going to deliver it. He's going to
yeah,
deliver it with compassion, but he's going to deliver it the way the Bible says it is. And
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
just really resonates with me and with Melissa and us. And it was just like, this is where we
Hmm.
want to be. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's just been amazing since then. So
That's amazing, man. I just appreciate you guys walking through the doors, and from day one, you guys have just loved people well. You guys have such a big heart and hospitality for people. And we just want to say thank you and for just loving the church how you guys do. You guys are such a blessing. Absolutely. When you think about Harvest Valley, for those listening, maybe that don't know about Harvest Valley, how would you describe it, or what do you appreciate about perhaps what God is doing at the church?
yeah, kind of like I said, it's a family, 100%. It's not a building. It's not a place to go on Sunday. If you're trying to just come and get your fix,
Yeah,
yeah, you're gonna get it, but that's not the purpose of it. We're a family, and everybody, whether you know people or not, if something happens, there's hundreds of people there to support you, and anybody is
yeah,
willing to do whatever they have to help out. And then just like the life groups, the men's group, our life group, I mean, literally we sit and text each other like, when's the next one going to happen? How come
yeah,
this winter break so long? It seems like can't wait to get it going again.
yeah,
Um, and, in the just the message that you deliver every Sunday, well, it's you, or, when Peter delivers, whoever,
yeah,
it's biblical based. It's authentic. It's not a drama. It's not a
yeah,
show. It's from the Bible.
yeah,
And it doesn't matter if it's going to take a year and a half to go through the book of Acts or any other book. We're going to go through it, and we're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about
yeah.
it, how it pertains to today's world.
Mm,
And like I said, some of that is not what people want to hear,
mm,
but it's what we need to be willing to hear, and it's what we need to be willing to accept and move towards if
yeah.
we truly want to grow in our faith. So
Mm. That's so good. I appreciate you sharing that. My final question for you, as you think about the church, as we head into 2025, I just really believe that God has some great things in store for us that we're called to step into. if you were to have an encouragement for those who are listening, how would you encourage the church this year? Or what steps would you want to encourage them to take, maybe in their faith or maybe being a part of the body? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same thing that I've been saying to myself is lean in and get uncomfortable.
Oh,
And it's a hard place to be, but it's where we need to be. Get uncomfortable with being a witness, get uncomfortable with talking about God in your workplace, and just showing up every day, and being intentional about making that time. Like I talked about putting an hour on my calendar for a coffee or a lunch with somebody monthly. Well, put a
yeah,
15-minute on your calendar every day for a meeting with Jesus, and sit
yeah,
down and go through it.
yeah,
It's easier said than done, and unfortunately, those are the first meetings that we drop off because the only person they impact is you. But
right,
be intentional about it and just really lean in, and take what you get on Sunday and take it through the week, and use those as learning opportunities, and just continue to grow with the church, because I have no question that Harvest Valley is meant to impact thousands and thousands of people in the valley, and it's going to be a
yeah,
long-term process. So yeah, just be intentional about it. And if you it's one of those, you're gonna miss a day, you're gonna miss maybe a week, things happen.
yeah,
um
yeah,
but just get back into doing it, and it becomes a routine, which becomes a habit, which becomes part of your
yeah.
life, and and a very important part, because
Mm.
if you can't show up for you, you're not going to show up for anybody else.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. As you were talking, that word intentionality, yeah, kept coming to mind. How you talked about taking the steps, put it on your calendar, show up, and I think that's such a good word. Is that, man, when you sow into things, and you, like you talked about life group, how you sow into that, you're intentional about it, how it's been such a blessing to you, and so I appreciate you speaking into that. And we do have to be so intentional, and at sometimes, even coming to church it could be a habit thing. And so thanks for speaking into that. I really appreciate that. And also, I'm looking forward to just serving with you and going on this journey of faith together. And I appreciate just the expertise and the background you bring to this team. And so thank you for your yes. Thank you for praying about that. And we appreciate you and Melissa. You guys are such a blessing. And Gertie as well. As well. So
Yeah. Well, thank you
that's
guys
good.
for thinking about us, and bringing this opportunity to us, because it's definitely a full family affair. And yeah, thanks for just being the people you are, and the way you represent love. And we truly love coming and being around you guys. So
Mm, we appreciate that. Hey, Russell, thanks again for your time. God bless you, man. Love you, my friend, and we'll be in touch. Thank you.
all right, sounds good. Have a good day.
You too. Bye bye. Hey, Harvest Valley, thanks so much for just listening in, and thanks for leaning into to Russell and his life and his story. And we just continue to appreciate your prayers as we move forward in faith and continue to step into what God has for us. We know that God has great things in store for 2025. So let's move forward in faith and walk into what God has for us in Christ Jesus. Thanks for being with us.